Liz, thank you for being on Women's Circle today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat to you.
It's been a journey and I love watching your journey, hence why I wanted to speak to you today. So I was wondering if we could start off with kind of maybe a little bit about, where you came from to get to where you started your business and then motherhood, and then we'll get into the spiritual journey. How does that sound?
Yeah, sure. So just stop me if I blab because I do like to chat. So background is grew up in Brisbane and I actually I've always been sporty. So it's just kind of always been my thing. And I said to mum that I wanted to go to uni and do exercise science, but she did not want me to do that. So I went down and in the Blue Mountains, did a Bachelor of Commerce and majored in hospitality and tourism management, which was
So
not really my jam. But I guess I learned a lot about business in doing that. And at that point, which I was like, 19 or 20, I'd always said that I would open my own restaurant. So it's obviously always been kind of in me that I would do my own thing. And then when I was 24, I just decided I needed to go back to uni. I wanted to do science. I wanted to kind of know exactly how the body worked. I was very curious about it. And so I went back and did human movement studies, which was a much better time to do it because the industry had, evolved so much by that time, and we were recognised by Medicare, and it was just I got in at a really good time, and so I was kind of a mature age student. And I knew when I went in that I wanted to do weight management at Wesley Weight Management when I came out of it. And I got my prac there and I did that. And I realized really early on I was dealing with these people that had zero freedom and control of their life. And they were really unhappy with their health. They obviously were battling all different health concerns and conditions, and so from there I got another job, and it was in chronic disease, so really looking at how to use exercise interventions with chronic disease. And then I started my own business in pediatrics, and I guess that kind of evolved from doing the chronic disease stuff, which I loved helping people find their freedom and their health. But I also wanted to prevent people from getting to that point. And the combination of the two has just been really, really nice because I've got all these kind of oldies that I learn so much from, and I build these amazing relationships and I help them be better and live happier. And then I go and play with kids and get them moving, which, is just the best thing ever because it's so positive. And I'm kind of hoping to build really healthy relationships with exercise. And how I met you was doing the more women's health stuff and incorporating baby development into postnatal care as well. So yeah,
that was so good. It was such a nice program to like work out with your baby,
yeah.
And,
Yeah, it's something that I just stumbled across with my own baby, my first baby, Flynn. He had the torticollis, like the tight neck, so he got a bit of flat head on one side, and the pediatric physio was like, you need to be doing tummy time, you need to do all this stuff, and of course he hated it. So I just started getting on the floor with him and doing my Pilates and playing with him, and I think what I realized as well as a new mum was fitting in exercise and eating and sleeping and all of that. Like, you can't do it while they're sleeping, so I can't do it all while they're sleeping. So I tended to keep my exercise for when Flynn and my second boy, Marley, were awake. And so it was something that we did together rather than trying to get it in while they were asleep, because that's just a mission, as most mums know, fitting stuff in.
That's a good tip. So has Pilates always been your thing? Like, how did you find it?
So No, I've done Pilates for a really long time, but I was mostly endurance sports.
Okay.
I have done marathons, Ironman, like ridiculously long bike rides. Yeah, so I'm always up for a challenge, basically. But I did a Pilates course my first year out of uni, and I think I really saw the importance of it when I was working in that chronic disease and weight management, because I couldn't get any of those people to actually adhere to the recommended exercise without being in immense amounts of pain, because they didn't have the core stability to even do 30 minutes of walking every day without, having hip pain and back pain and all of that sort of stuff. I had to kind of go back to the basics and teach them Pilates so that they could move in a healthy way. And then obviously it resonated so well with me because I was doing these endurance events. And it was, for me, Pilates is like the foundation of all other exercise. So it makes everything else possible from my point of view. So yeah.
That's a great tip for new mums who are struggling with the concept of exercise and like, how do I fit it in? And like, if you kind of see Pilates as a foundation to all of the other things, because that's what I hear a lot, like, oh my God, I can't run right now. And it's sort of like, start with a few exercises building core, right?
Yeah. And it's a perfect place to start. And I don't know, for some reason, for me personally, after having babies, I was like, okay, this is a fresh slate. I can start now and build it all up, because you basically like stretched and moved in so many different ways that you don't really have any other choice but to start from the very beginning. And they'll tell you in hospital, okay, starting to do your pelvic floor, doing some stretches for posture. And that's how I start with my women's health stuff, is starting with really basic pelvic floor exercises and core exercises and glute stability exercises and stretching so that you're in the right posture. But yeah, it's just about, and what I kind of say to people that are struggling with getting the Pilates in because it's maybe not super fun, you'd rather go for a walk or a run or something like that, it's basically, it's what you need to do to be able to do what you want to do. It's laying that foundation so that you can do all other things. And for me, exercise is all about having the freedom to do whatever I want to do. In the past, that's been, in Italy, running around the streets of Italy and finding these amazing places and just being stoked that I've been able to do that on foot and explore. And if I didn't have that strength, then I wouldn't have been able to do that. So it's just a habit that you need to do to achieve whatever that big goal is.
Yeah, and the habit thing is such an important point. Like, as someone who, like, I've always liked sport, but I wouldn't say fitness has been my thing. But I don't know, I've just found running, and I just like, but I sat on the couch, and like my first run, I thought it was 5 kilometers and it was 800 meters. Like, but then I ran 10 Ks, like, little fun run a couple of weeks ago. So, that's in 4 months, that's setting that habit, and what the give back is so that tenfold of like, I find it really easy to walk upstairs, I ride my bike everywhere, I feel good in my clothes. Like, it's a real flow on, isn't it?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, so much so. And I think what I like about it, and I find so relatable and transferable to different things, is it's so clear. Like, if you're training for a 10K run, you know that your daily habits need to consist of good nutrition, hydration, you need to get enough sleep, you need to not be going out partying the night before. Like, it's all the other things that you need to be doing to set yourself up to reach that goal. And that for me is so transferable into my work life. And it's something that I'm really calling on at the moment, that I'm like, oh, if I was training for a marathon, I'd need to be getting 8 hours sleep. I'd need to be stretching every day. I need to be doing my Pilates, blah, blah, blah. But with work, if I'm, working towards this big goal, I just work really hard. Like, where's the rest? Where's the nutrition? Where's the hydration? So I think that's, you can pull so much from that exercise and, working for goals, and the self-efficacy that it builds, and resilience that it builds, and the confidence. And it's so transferable when you look at it that way.
Yeah. And I was going to say, like, is that the mindset that you've always had in relation to exercise, that you have taken it into your work? And so it's kind of, it makes sense that you would set something up and like be your own.
Yeah. And I don't think I've consciously gone, okay, that's what I have done with sport. And so now, this is just, I'm going to transfer this over to work life. I think it's my personality type. I love a goal. It's almost to my own detriment. Like, sometimes I get so focused on goals that I'm not just happy being, and it's like I'm always looking for more, and it's not always positive. So sometimes I've really got to sit back and go, okay, I just need to slow down. My psychologist actually says to me, which is a bit of a mantra, is you need to do the least amount you can do in a day, because that's still going to be more than a lot of other people, because it's just my personality type. And I think that's why I've always moved. It's the way that I use and manage my energy, because I do have a lot. But, I still really need to be careful with it, because one of the other learnings that I've had is that I like to use what I've got. And sometimes that means that we burn out all the time. So I'm trying to teach myself that it's okay to have some reserves. And if I just sit and stretch for an afternoon, it's okay. I don't need to kind of smash myself all the time. So yeah, always learning about myself.
Yeah. So like, that's an interesting point. How do you recognize when you are basically burning out? So I guess, like, if we transfer this to motherhood, right?
Yeah.
And decide I've got to be all these things at once. What are the signs for you that and I'm guessing that you've learned these over time, because that's that you can, okay, I need to find balance here.
Yeah. I think when I start losing sleep, that's like a big one. If I'm waking up in the night, and I track everything. Like, I've been journaling for a really long time. I actually have, and I'm not sure whether you know, but I actually had a stroke in 2015. And that was from pushing for a really long time, which we'll go into with the spiritual healing journey as well, because it all kind of ties in. But I just pushed and pushed and pushed really hard for a really long time. And this was pre-kids, and actually ended up having a stroke at 33, which was pretty major and really, really scary. So, and just I think a big wake-up call. And I remember I used to say things like, oh, I wish I would just be the type of person that could go for a walk and be like, go to yoga and be really happy, instead of like having to do a 10K run. And I'm now definitely that person. Like, I love just going for a walk. I love going to yoga. But it's been a really big process, a lot of self-reflection. I've got a really good mental health support team, and not just mental health, but, particularly through having kids, I was seeing a women's health physio. Exercising with feedback was really important to me. But just stopping and giving myself some time to check in with myself. And if I start to lose sleep, if I am getting sick a lot, like, that's my kind of really obvious one. And if I'm just feeling generally flat, it's like, okay, I just need to reset. how am I feeling at the moment, and then just almost having, like, if I feel like burnout's on the verge, it's like cleaning the slate for a week and going, right, I need to just go really easy, do some light walks and some stretching, but I need to just like trip this habit. And for me at the moment, I'm exploring it a bit more because I feel like it's a bit hormonal as well. I feel this pre-menstrual kind of week, I start to sleep really badly. I am super irritable, and I get like almost manic. I'm like, go, 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 go. And I think I'm like trying to get those dopamine hits and feel really good. I tend to exercise more because I want to feel good, and I'm just like frustrated. So for me, it's been about tracking and now seeing a bit of a trend that this is what's happening. So putting in loads of self-care around that time, no plans around that time. So I'm not like super busy all the time, and just leaning on my support team, from my family to my teams at work, particularly around that time. So it's all, I've got it all in my calendar, so I know what's going on, and just kind of setting myself up so that I don't burn out, and I'm just managing my energy a little bit better.
Yeah, and you know, that's so interesting because we actually spoke to Matilda from Ioni yesterday, and they do menstrual cups, and we spoke about this whole understanding your cycle and the seasons and working with them, and like, why were we not taught this at school?
I know, it seems to just have become a hot topic lately. Like, I'm seeing it everywhere. It's definitely something I want to look at more. But
they're running a workshop, so
cool.
I'll see you there. Yeah, it's totally about, but I'd love to so I'd love to get into your story about how everything's tied into your spiritual journey. But I just had this question before, because as someone that's quite, you know, physical exercise is your thing, in theory, you're very connected to your body, right?
Yes.
But if you're suffering, you know, illness or a stroke or something like that, there's a different listening to the body. So can you talk us a little bit about like that switch from like using your body and then actually knowing your body?
And look, I think this is something, I mean, I had to learn it obviously when you end up, and it's interesting because, you know, I can say that I pushed myself into having a stroke, but no one else has actually said that to me. And, you know, one of my things at the moment is I need to be really kind to myself, because I do analyze a lot and I can be quite self-critical. So no one's actually said to me, you pushed yourself into having a stroke. But I think, you know, there's a fine line when you, and I see it with my clients as well, like they start running. It's like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's almost like you get addicted to it, and then everyone's running 10K every day, which, you know, I've done myself. But it's kind of setting yourself up for success by slowing down. And, you know, we see it all the time. The less you do, the more you achieve. And in terms of exercise, I think it just needs to be balanced. Like you can't do high intensity exercise every day without burning out, compromising your immune system, or injuring yourself. Like, it's just not going to happen. And what we want to think about is, you know, lifelong health. We want to be healthy for a long time so that we can have a long, healthy life. So it's about getting the little things in on the different sessions in over the weeks. And some of that is tuning in to your body. And I think when you are doing loads of exercise, you're releasing those endorphins, and it almost masks the things that can be happening underneath. So I think having a decent plan in place is really good, and not just going off the endorphins. And and knowing, you know, where your easy days are. And I was talking about this the other day, like if you're training for a marathon, you need to have rest days. Like well, otherwise you won't get there without being injury free. So it's valuing rest as much as the harder sessions. And I think it's in those rest sessions, and I still like to have a session. So for me, that might be yin yoga. And that's where you're really tuning into your body, and you can feel where your body's at. And it might even be Pilates. Like you can feel that you're a bit weaker on your right side than you are on your left side, and you're getting that feedback because you're going a little bit slower. So I think it's about incorporating those slow sessions. And that for me is something that's evolved over time, and something that I've learned through, you know, various injuries and health illnesses. And it's something, you know, burnout is something, it's a combination of all things in your life. Like I will get burnout now, not from exercising too much, but from working too hard and having 2 little boys and doing exercise. So it's about getting like I've just written an energy management plan that I got the idea of my mentor, about managing my energy, which, you know, came down into the tracking of my cycle and all of that sort of stuff. So I think it's, you know, holistic approach is what's required from everyone.
Yeah, that's so great. And I mean, let's talk about this holistic approach that you've developed. Yeah, and let's hear about that journey of like, yeah, going from the outside, the external to the internal, and what you've learned from that.
So I think it was last year, and I think for me, I like motherhood really, it balanced me, but it really forced me to look inside as well. I found the transition from going from, you know, entrepreneur essentially to first-time mum really tricky, which I know a lot of people do. And now when if I have team members going on maternity leave, I'm like, okay, just prepare yourself. This is really tricky because you're so used to. I had a team member this year say she was going off for a baby, and she said, oh, I'll be back at, you know, in 4 months. And I'm like, no, you won't. Be crazy. Like you can come back, but give yourself some time. Don't kind of make promises to anyone. But I think, you know, during that time, you really are forced to reflect because you've got something greater than yourself to look after and to care for. So I really found that transition really hard. And then I found the transition into motherhood and managing guilt around having my own time and my exercise really difficult. And then with my second, I actually had prenatal depression, which was horrendous. Like pretty much from the second that we conceived, I was just miserable till the day I birthed him, and then I was totally fine. It was just the hormone changes, I think.
Like, or is this in reflection?
No, I knew at the time. We had mental health plan in place. The obstetrician was like, so how are you feeling, like doing the, you know, the mental health check? So how are you feeling? And I'm like, I'm actually not good. Like I was crying every day. It was not good. I'm very grateful though. That's when I started meditating more. I started using some essential oils because I just found aromatherapy was really uplifting. I connected with so many people on it. And I really started to explore my inner self a lot more. And it's just kind of evolved from there. I've still got the same support team that I had during that time, which has been amazing because now I feel really good and we can, you know, move to those next levels. And I think
what kind of people do you have in your support team, just for other mothers?
So I have got a psychologist that I've been seeing for 3 years now, 3.5 years. And then my husband and I see a couples psychologist as well, which has been amazing. I've got a kinesiologist, so she's my woo-woo help. So she's very spiritual, which is just opened my view and my mind to all of that stuff. And then I've got some mentors as well that have kind of facilitated that growth. So I've had them in place, the psych team, since that prenatal depression, that all came on board. And then I got my mentor, Lorraine, about March last year, just as COVID was hitting. And I knew that I wanted her for 4 months beforehand. I was listening to her podcast. And I just knew something inside of me that I needed to heal. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to be the person I wanted to be until I healed myself. And I needed to work on myself before my business. And I thought she was the right person to do that. And she introduced me to so many different ideas, and I was just really open to it. And I think it was probably just like a succession of events from from the stroke to the tricky transition into first time mother to prenatal depression, and then it was kind of just like a natural sort of progression to knowing I need to heal myself and I need to be open to other things.
Because in hindsight, they're all signs, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the stroke was the biggest sign.
Oh, the biggest sign. Like
opening.
I know. And like I'm so grateful that happened. And it took a really long time to get there because I was so scared. But I'm so grateful because it has allowed me to live the life that I want to live and be content, doing that without training for these ridiculous things and trying to prove myself all the time. I feel like I'm like this year, this spiritual journey has allowed me to be happy with who I am and just be who I want to be, without trying to be anyone else or keep everyone happy. And it's all just been about being open and looking inside as well. And it's so interesting because as soon as you open yourself up to it, you realize like these people come into your life and you're like, oh my God, like they're like totally into this. Like I've got a client and he's super spiritual and we have these massive D&Ms and like I'll be crying half the time because it's just these really deep conversations. And I'd been taking him for years and we'd never had a conversation really before. And now I was like, oh, like I'm listening to this podcast about this and we just started this conversation. It's just about being open to it. And the more open you are, the more you learn. And then it just becomes this epic journey. And I think, spirituality can be whatever you want it to be. But for me, it's about being optimistic and having faith that everything's going to be okay. And without realizing it, I think that's, it's who I am. But I lost it a really long time ago through trauma, because I lost my dad when I was 13. So that was had a huge impact on my life. And I think that I lost faith that everything was going to be okay. And then the stroke was like this big reminder, like, hey, you need to slow down and look after yourself. And it's just then been little nudges every time I don't maybe listen. There's just like a little nudge and I go, oh, need to really listen to that. And now I feel like I'm living with more integrity than I ever have, which has just been amazing. Like it's just been so good. Like I can't even put it into words. I journal like twice a day and just write things down as I think of them because it's Yeah, it's amazing. And there's so many people that are spiritual. When you're open to it, you have these conversations. Like literally everyone I speak to is spiritual. And I'm like, oh my God, what was I doing? Like, well, like, was everyone like this before? Because I've just figured it out. So
Different world.
maybe I'm just late to the party.
No, I think, what you said is you're living now with vulnerability and
Yeah.
authenticity.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah.
really beautiful space to sit in because, yeah, you're going to feel the emotions and express them that you've probably repressed.
Yes.
Trauma.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's a lot to all of a sudden,
Yes.
oh my God, like,
Yes.
body's releasing so many things that have been stored up, right?
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
And that patterning, like you talked about, you've had some things happen to you. And then it creates this conditioned patterning. And you're like, who I really am is this, very connected, very
Yeah.
spiritual person. And that's
Yeah.
ultimately who we all are, right?
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
the conditions, the patterning, the attachment wounds we have,
Yeah.
all of these things cloud
Yeah.
who we really are.
Yes. Yeah. And the fear,
Yeah.
like the fear of so many things. Like I've just been fearful my whole life.
Yeah.
And I think I still am, but now I'm like, oh, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's okay to be scared. I'm okay with that. Like I've just got to go, everything's okay today and have faith that it will work out because it always does in one way or another. But it's that faith. Like I remember when I had the stroke, my husband, he wasn't my husband at the time, he was my partner, and he was just like, you've just got to have faith. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What's all this faith stuff? I literally feel like I blocked that out until this year. And I'm like, you know how you said I needed to have faith? Well, I think I found it. I think I figured it out. And you have known that the whole time. And like, I literally didn't even really know that he was spiritual until I just looked inwards and opened up. Like I opened up so that I could look in, and I was like, this is okay. I can do this, and I can say that I'm scared, and I can say that I need to work on myself, and I can not be everything to everyone. And I can look after myself. I can be a little bit selfish and look after myself. And by doing that, I'm more to myself and to everyone else as well.
100%.
So,
And he's been your teacher,
yeah,
really gentle way. And they're our best teachers without saying you need to do this and you need to do that. Just by living their life in an authentic way, eventually you open up.
Yes, exactly. It only took, like 8 years, but that's okay. I don't care because I'm here and I'm really happy. And it's really nice to have those conversations with him now. Like, I feel like we're connecting on such a deeper level because I'm like, oh my God, I'm on your level now, which is, it's just really nice place to be. So yeah, I just feel, I feel like sharing it as much as I can, which is nice.
And that's the thing. That's what we got to do once we got it. And I think, we were talking about, like, I've got this theory about becoming an adult, right?
Yes.
And that like a lot of us, and I can recognize, are children who have children. Like we haven't learned to adult.
Yes.
And in a partnership, there may be someone that's a bit more adult than the other. And they can guide, but it's the awakening or the dark night or all those things, the illnesses, the pain, however it shows up for you, the messages. For me, it's crippling anxiety. It's a message to be like, lean in, there's more to learn, and these are the growing pains of becoming an adult.
Yes, so much. It's so true.
Self-sufficient, self-loving, caring adult who can then parent children without spilling all of our wounding all over them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So what have you found there? Like how has doing your inner work flowed into your parenting?
Oh, so many ways. I feel like I'm just so much calmer. I get really bad anxiety because I'm scared that something bad is going to happen. But, you know, and I have these visualizations of terrible things happening. But I think that I can now just kind of sit with it and just say, you know, I've got faith that everything's going to be okay, and everything is okay today. Like, if everything's okay right now in this moment, then, you know, I don't need to worry. And I think, to be honest, that's massive, because I think, you know, being anxious and worrying about something happening to your children will mean they will grow up thinking something's going to happen to them. My 4-year-old, I can't remember when it was, it must have been last year or maybe a year and a half ago, he said, we were talking, and then he just said something like, "Mummy, something's wrong with me, isn't it? Something's wrong with me." And I was just like, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done to my child? This is me talking. So that was like a bit of a wake up call. So now things that I say to them on a regular basis is, you are safe. We are safe. And every night, well, most nights, we sit at the dinner table and we talk about our favorite thing that happened that day. And it's just, I feel like the spiritual awakening that I've experienced has slowed me down, because I want to feel it all. Like, I want to soak it up. I document it, and that slowing down has made me more present with my kids. And, you know, this year I was listening to all these podcasts, and I was speaking to our psych, and she's like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do? If you like, if no one else was watching, and not, you know, what do you want to do? You need to stop and think about what you want to do. And I went away and I just digested it over a few days. And I was like, I don't want to work 4 days. Why am I working 4 days? Like, I always said I was going to work 3 days, because I went back to work pretty early, particularly with my first, because I just struggled not doing. And I always said I might go back a little bit earlier, but I'll always only work 3 days. And of course, year 2 of my second son's life, I'm doing 4 days work straight away. So I did what I had to do to come back to 3 days. And that's been massive for me. Like, just, you know, like I was saying before, having some energy in the tank, and then being able to do fun things with them and bringing my better self to them. And, you know, we've been through a few things. My eldest son's going through speech at the moment, which triggered me a little bit. Like, and I know it's like small bickies, really, but I just didn't want him to have difficulty. I, you know, like, it's his way to communicate. So it did, and I could see that it was you know, there was some confidence links there. So I feel like having space for myself has allowed me to hold that space for him. And now he loves going to speech. It's like his favorite thing of the week. We do it just one-on-one together. And he's like come in leaps and bounds. And I think it's just having space. I can hold that space for him because I've held space for myself.
Huge. And you recognized really early that your anxiety was becoming an anxious attachment for your children.
Yeah.
And like, it's so much about just being you know, we don't have to change ourselves immediately, but just being aware, like just having that awareness of like, oh, I'm playing that out again. Oh, here we go. Or, you know, that's what creates the change, isn't it? You know,
Absolutely.
It's not this radical, you know, because I don't want to scare women off into being like, you have to do all this deep, dark work. Like, I mean, I personally have, but like, again, I'm probably like you. It's that personality of like, I need to get to right to the core of what is going on. But then,
Yeah.
I think our light is that we're those kind of people to then share with other people.
Merit.
What?
Yeah.
So it's like, people have to be those.
Yeah. True.
So, yeah, it doesn't have to be that deep and dark. It's simply about starting to observe your behavior from a non-judgmental parenting space, right?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
I think removing the judgment is really tricky. But and I think that's where the roles of people sharing and saying, hey, look, I've been through X, Y, and Z and lost my spirituality for 25 years, but I'm now okay. I think that is really important because it shows people that you can be vulnerable without, and you can expose yourself without getting judgment. Like it doesn't, and you don't have to, like, we're our own worst critics, right? But I think it's about learning to love who you are with all the, all the things that you have, everything that it encompasses. And that's okay. It's okay to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we were always told not to love ourselves. Was it? I don't know.
Or let somebody else love you. You will find somebody that will fix your flaws.
Yeah, totally.
Man, like you are going to find someone that's going to trigger all the flaws.
Yes.
So you can work through them. That's the psychology of what we do.
Yes, totally. So I think it's, just like being okay with who you are, even if you've got loads of work to do. And it's about taking bite-sized pieces of that work. And that first stuff is just one, like giving yourself the time to then have the awareness.
Yeah, I think that's great. Any particular, you said you listened to a bunch of podcasts, anything in particular that you would like to share that people should listen to?
I've got lots of Lewis Howes.
He's
so who's the School of Greatness? Yeah. Then there's what's his name? The monk guy, Jay Shetty. Yeah, he's really good. Then Lorraine Murphy, she's my mentor. She's got loads of good ones in there, and loads of different ones that are that deep work and healing work. The Lorraine Murphy show, the Tim Ferriss show, love him. School of Greatness, On Purpose, Feel Better, Live More, Dr. Chatterjee.
Okay.
He's really good. He does some really good deep ones. And then the Oprah ones.
Oh, yeah.
Love it.
Soul sessions. All right. I'll definitely put them in the links. But Liz, how can we find you if we want to work with you or have access to some stuff?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me at Lizzie D AEP on Insta or Kids Heart Pilates AU. They're my two like mums and families sort of brands. And then kidsheartpilates.com.au is my website, and you can email me on liz@kidsheartpilates.com.au.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's really inspirational.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's so nice to chat to you.
Pleasure.